Replace function in Regex. Let's learn about replace function by solving this code challenge. In this challenge, you will need to implement the function sensorMessage that expects one parameter message, which is a string. And this function should censor bad words. So this function needs to replace words like noob, stupid, and idiot with 3 asterisks. And the function itself should return an updated message. And here are some of the example inputs. So at first we have a message, you are a noob. And then as you see, we need to replace noob with 3 asterisks. The second example contains 2 words, stupid and idiotic. But as you see, because idiotic is not directly in our scope, so only the word idiot in our scope, we change the word idiot to 3 asterisks and we remain with the ending of this word. In the next example, we don't have any bad words, and in this case we return the same message as we had. And also on edge case, if we have an empty string, this function also should return an empty string. So we can split this challenge into 2 parts. So in the first part we need to write the regex pattern that will detect all these bad words, and in the second part we will replace them with 3 asterisks. So at first I go to the website regex101.com, and here inside of the text string area I put example inputs. So now you can try writing this pattern yourself, but then we can write it together. So at first let's choose our flags. I'll use the global flag because we might have several bad words in one sentence, and also I will use the case insensitive flag, but you can also solve it without this flag. Just I want to detect uppercase letters also. So and then let's write our regex pattern. So the pattern here is very simple. We just list all target words that we want to replace, and then we put OR operator between them. So now we can copy this pattern, and now we can implement our function. Now on the right side you can see my VS Code, and on the left side you can see the console from the browser. And here we see 4 times word undefined because we have 4 console logs. So it means that we are connected to our browser and we can start solving our challenge. So at first let's add the regex pattern. So then we need to use one of the functions where we will use this regex pattern. At this point we know the test, match and match all functions, but here we will use the replace function. And if you look to the description of the replace function, we need to attach it to a string, so for example message, and then it expects 2 parameters. So the first parameter is searching value. It can be a string, so literal string that we want to replace, or it can be a regular pattern. So this is what we will use. And then the second parameter is the replace value. So this is the value that we want to see instead of our target group. For the search value, I will add our regex pattern. And for the replace value, I will add 3 asterisks. And now let's return the updated message. And then if you look to the console, you can see that we have the same results as we expected, and this means that our function works correctly. So now we're replacing our target group. But often, if one of these words is a part of a bigger word, so like here, the word idiot is the part of the word idiotic, we don't want to replace a bigger word. And in this case, you can just surround your pattern with word boundaries. And then if I save this file, you will see in the console that the word idiotic is not replaced anymore. So this is just a trick that we often want to use in this kind of functions. It also has an additional feature that you will see in this challenge. So in this challenge, you will need to implement the function format name that expects one parameter full name, which is a string. This function should convert full name from one format, which is the first name space last name, to the second format, which is the last name, comma, space and first name. And then this function should return an updated name. And here are some of the example inputs. So for example, John Smith, we should return the Smith, comma, space, John. So we replace the first and last name, and also we add the comma after the last name. So this is the second example, Dragon Player. So as you see, even nicknames we can change to the player, comma, space, dragon. But if we have incorrect format, so as you see here, instead of the space, we have comma. In this case, this function should return the input string. And again, we can solve this challenge in 2 parts. So in the first part, we need to write the regex pattern, and in the second part, we need to write the replace logic. So for that, I return back to the website, and now I put new example strings into the text string area. So now, again, you can try writing this pattern your own, but then let's write this pattern together. So at first, let's choose the flags that we will use. I will put the global flag, even though that we expect only one string, full name and last name. It will help us to control all the inputs codes on this website. So before copying this pattern, we can remove the global flag. And then I will also add the case insensitive flag because we want to take into account both uppercase and lowercase letters. So now, inside of our pattern, we need to detect the first name. So basically this is a word and tilde space. So for that, let's write the character class. And then we need to add the quantifier, because now we select each letter individually. I will add the quantifier from 1 until unlimited. And now you can see that we select all our words separately, but I want to select an entire string full name. So for that, I add space. And then I add the same pattern for selecting the last name. So now you see that we have two matches, and we don't have our match with incorrect format because it contains comma instead of space. So now we can copy this pattern, but at first I remove the global flag. So now again, in the console you can see 3 times word undefined, and this is because we have 3 console logs and our function returns nothing. So but it means that we are connected to our browser and we can start solving this challenge. So let's add our pattern to the function format name. Then we need to use one of the regex functions. In this case, we will use the replace function. But our second parameter will be special. So now, instead of the second parameter, I put empty string, but actually what we want is we want to detect the first name and then we want to put it to the end. So now, instead of the second parameter, I put this construction like $2, comma, space, $1. $1 in this case means the first variable. It should be the first name from our pattern. And then the $2 means the second variable, which will be the last name from our pattern. And then comma and space are just strings. So for example, in the results, you can see that we have comma and space. So only $2 and $1 will be replaced with some variables. So but at first, let's return the updated name to see what it is equal to. So and now you see quite interesting result. So at first we have literally the $2, comma, space, $1, and if we have incorrect format, we return the same input string. So now we need to actually think where our pattern can take these variables. For better demonstration, I returned back to the website, and here in the match information tab, we have only our match. But actually we want to find 2 variables. So the first variable will be from our first name. We can select it by making a capturing group. So now in the match information tab, you can see that we have group 1, which is the first name John. And then let's also make the capturing group for the last name. So and now you can see that we have our match John space Smith, and then we have the first variable, which is John, and the second variable, which is Smith. So now let's copy this pattern and return back to our function. Here I replace our pattern, and now you can see that we have the same results as we expected, which means that our function works correctly. So here is important to remember that when you see dollar in our strings, this is not always the literal dollar sign. It can be a variable, and this is actually what is used in many languages. And finally, let's use the knowledge from this video to solve the last challenge. But on this time, I will not solve it with you. At first, I will explain you the challenge, and then I will show you the answer. So you will need to solve this challenge yourself based on the knowledge from this video. In this challenge, you will need to implement the function format date that expects one parameter date, which is a string. This function should detect the first format, which is year, then dash, month, dash, day. And then this function should change this format to the day dot month dot year. So then this is important that your function should just change the format. It shouldn't validate the date. If you have date from the future, like this one, your function anyway should change this format. And then this function should return an updated date. And here are some of the example inputs. So in the first input, we have the age 2026. So based on the second format, it goes to the end of the string. Then we have the 6th month, and month stays in the same place. And then we have the first date, which goes to the beginning of a new format. So the second example is very similar, just except that this date is from the future, but our function doesn't care about it, so it can anyway detect the date and then change the format. And then if we have the wrong date that is out of our pattern, we just return the same input. And as I said, try solving this challenge yourself, and after 5 seconds I will show you my solution. So this is the solution that I have. Here we have quite long regex pattern, but you can see 3 capturing groups. So the first capturing group is a year. We have a character class that detects all numbers, and then we have the quantifier 4, which means that we're looking exactly for 4 digits. Then you see that we have a dash, and then we have our second capturing group. This is a month. Then we again have a dash, and then we have the same capturing group, but now this is for day. And also I included my pattern into anchors, so you can see the beginning anchor and the end anchor. So actually you can solve this pattern even without these anchors, but this is just for additional safety. So with these anchors, it means that if something inside of my input doesn't match with an entire pattern, so for example we have an exclamation mark in the end, in this case my function will not change this format, it will just return the input string. But if you remove the anchor points from the pattern, in this case your function will give this result. So it will change the format of the date, and then it will also include all characters that are out of our pattern. So depending on which behavior you need, you may include or not include the anchors. So today you learned everything about the replace function in regex. In the next video we will learn about look ahead and look behind.